Welcome to 2 Cents Short of a Dollar, the show where we give our 2 cents and keep it 100. We're your host. That's Motiz, and I'm Rue. Today, Severance. So we got the season finale, and it ended on Mel Torme. The Windows of Your Mind is the song, but I really think they should have ended it off with Bon Jovi. Shot through the heart, and you're to blame. You give love a bad name because wow, Mark S. Boy, do you give love a bad name. That was an insane ending, but intense ride of an episode. It really didn't feel like an hour and 15 minutes. It felt like the normal 48, 50 minutes. So just tell me a little bit about your thoughts watching the episode.
Um, I would say, I mean, there were some really good moments in episode 10, some really good emotional pull moments, even the conversation between Annie Mark and Helly and the computer desk, making that kind of final decision. Even Dylan's short, monologue to his Annie, that was a good moment as well. The cabin moment between Mark and his Innie, that was cool. That was really nice to see, especially
Mhm.
the framework between the two. There were definitely some parts of the episode though I felt like was vastly unnecessary. Like I was just like, what is going on? Just the jump between comedic to seriousness, it kind of was like,
You mean you're referring to like another Milchick dance scene?
yeah, the milkshake dance was cool, but like I think it was excessive with the
The
parading,
band.
right? With the people, the band coming in. It kind of was
Okay.
like it kind of told me, okay, they're probably close to modern time, but I was like, the band is kind of excessive. And then when Helly kind of got up on the desk and made that speech, it
Yeah.
wasn't invoking enough for people to be like, oh, let's go ahead and just. And then when Milchick came out and said, and then seen Dylan, like,
Yeah.
F you, Milchick. I don't know. I just felt like maybe it was just purpose just to kind of like prolong it, allow Mark to get to where it need. But I don't know. I felt like that was kind of lazy to me. So
Yeah.
it was certain parts that was kind of like pretty low. But overall, I felt like it was a good episode.
I think the milkshake dance scene was literally just fan service, just saying we appreciate you because a lot of people loved the dance scene from season one. So I think this was literally just fan service. I get it though. It was a bit like you said with the whole band and everything. It was a bit maybe blown out of proportion, but I guess why it was a celebratory moment. And historically they've had these celebratory moments. For me, what was a little dangerous, but I think they executed it right was when I kept seeing Mark go in and out to talk to himself. I'm like, all right, this is feeling a little dragged out. But then they sped up the pace and then they kind of got to it. Then we really got maybe a struggle that, like, I mean, it's been evident, but
Mhm.
not in this way. And maybe just not amongst these characters, right? We saw the battle for, something you've been bringing up to me. Who really has the rights to the body? You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So we got to see that struggle, and I mean, the theme has been becoming larger and larger with characters like Dylan. Of course, Helly and Helena's always had the struggle, but I feel like we haven't quite seen Mark dealing with this struggle, right? Because it's been exactly what he wanted. He wanted to separate his life. So just to see the rebelliousness of the innie, and I mean, from his standpoint, I get it, right? It's like, yo, it's gonna be the end of me, but I guess I've just never seen his innie be that rebellious in that sense, with the moment being that large.
Yeah, and I get also this is the reason as to why Mark never reintegrated in the process because the writers wanted to show that dynamic, right? That little kind of split which I thought was kind of intertwined beautifully. But to be honest, yeah, that's like, and I've been telling you about this, like the sense of entitlement. I understand that any, form their own consciousness and they develop, but you got to think, right? Just what can any Mark really do? He's giving you an out, really. You know what Lumen is, you know what they've done to you, you know what organization they are. Yes, you want to live. I get that part. You want to exist, right? And whether or not you want to argue if they have the right to exist is, but ultimately, the person that's ultimately making that decision is the Audi, regardless of what anyone says, right? Because they're the
Mhm.
one that start up the process. Now, whether you call it inhumane for them not to continue that process is still their choice, the Audi. Now, the Audi Mark is basically granting you this option, this out option. Now, he says, "Oh, I don't, want to believe you, or whatever the case may be." But what other option do you have? That was kind of mind blowing to me. Like,
Mhm.
what do you? I don't know if they was trying to just get across, like, okay, maybe emotions cloud your judgment, but like
Yeah.
what we've seen from Lumen, what he's experienced from Lumen, it just didn't make like. I know Helly. You love Helly, and you don't want them. But what other option do you really have? You know what I
Right.
mean? It just didn't
Yeah.
make too much sense to me. I thought he would have like a better game plan or something more mischievous, behind that. But yeah, that
Yeah.
any mark was kind of blowing minds in that regard. But
So before I address, I want to address that with a statement that Helly made, right? But just because we're on the theme of the cabin or
yeah,
the birthing retreat, I want to stay there for a quick second. Thinking about, now what we've seen, and James says, "Hey, I've sired many in the shadows," right? He was trying to have other kids that would have the tempers of care or the fire and remind him of care. Like, do you think that's just privilege, like privy information to all management, or how do you think Miss Colbell knew that he's been doing that?
I don't know. I think Mr. Colbell, since she was the one that created Severance, she was probably privy to a lot of information that most other employees weren't too. But I'm pretty sure she wasn't the only one privy to that information in particular.
Yeah,
Maybe not everyone, but you know how it is in any organization. People, they're
yeah.
whispers. So I think it's one of those type of situations.
Yeah, I heard some rumbles about, potentially she was one of the people he had a baby with, but I don't believe that because one, I think she used to wear her severed chip around her neck. So I guess we don't know the timeline of when that was possibly taken out or if it was ever really inserted, right? But I just think like she would have been if she was severed right when she went to that birthing retreat, it would have been kicking off, right? Unless they have like a
Mhm.
Glasgow block on her or something. I don't know the full extremities of the Glasgow block, but I don't really think I'm not really buying the rumor of her being Mark's mom and Jane being Mark's dad. I'm just not really buying that rumor.
Yeah. I just don't. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's unlikely at this point too. What was interesting though in that scene that we're still in this topic is the fact that Miss Colbell, she's privy to a lot of information, but it seemed like she wasn't privy to Irvin's dreams. Like it
yep,
kind of just
yep.
took her a little bit aback. Like, oh, this is another.
And
This is something that's being overlooked.
she was surprised, and towards the kind of like the latter half of the episode we understand why she was surprised, I think, right? So now she was surprised because she does just like we don't understand like how were those dreams getting through, right? So she was just
Mhm.
like, how is it bypassing the severance, right? And we're going to talk about later like how important that is, but I want to go back to you saying like what is any Mark's plan? I don't think he has a plan. I think he's all just winging it and doing everything on
Yeah,
the
he
fly
doesn't
right
have
now
a plan.
because Helly
Yeah.
literally tells him, like, bro, like you gotta go save Gemma, go save her. Like, I'm her.
Right.
Let me ask you a quick question. Like, there's not a ton of like, like it's not paper foil tin hat rude today, right? But when she says I'm her, she means I'm her on the outside. You don't think she's actually her, do you?
So the thing is, I think at that moment she's Helly. Now there's some
I
symbolism
know
because
where you go.
like,
I know where you're going. Don't go there. Don't go there. Don't
oh,
go
okay,
there.
all right,
I
yeah,
know.
because I think they did something obvious that we all thinking. I don't know if they're just throwing it out there just to
Okay,
kind of
yeah,
throw
yeah, yeah.
people some guard, but we're on the same page. Yeah.
Don't go there. Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay, okay. But I have an idea where you're going. But let's talk about Jane saying because and I can't remember if this was in one of our videos or if it when we were on the phone. But I told you, I said, what if I think there's some conflict between Helena and her dad, and like the
Mhm.
kind of like oppression he's always put on her and her wanting to get from under there. What did you think about James saying, "I do not love my daughter," and he actually prefers the any.
Yeah, it was interesting. And you actually, I think you mentioned in the last video too, with the swimming scene where, and then we talked about having that conversation. But yeah, it really shows, right? Like his disgust when she was eating the eggs, like it kind of really shows that he just verbally mentions it to Helly. And then when Helly kind of lashes out, he's like, oh, care is like he sees care in her in that moment. So I think it's certain behaviors that he sees, whether it's behaviors from because he's mentioning there's something about being an adolescent and people growing out of that, whether it's innocence, whether it's just kind of those emotions that he sees Kieran, and then as they kind of grow out of it, he no longer sees that in them. Hence the reason why he talked about, the people he sired, none of them, he doesn't see care in them, right? So I just think she's just a part of that missing piece that he's searching for. And in that moment with Helly, he's seen it. He was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, there you are." You know what I mean? But I
Yeah.
don't know. James is a mysterious fellow. He's a weird little guy. You
Yeah.
know?
So yeah, we finally got the reveal of like what Cole Harbor was, right? So my next question was like, what did they need it for? And when I saw that scene, and it made me think, okay, he knows Heli R is way too rebellious, right? I don't think you can turn her. He does not mess with outside Helena. Do you think Gemma was a test subject because his ultimate goal is to do this to his daughter, find the proper way to do it, to put all the proper tempers in her, so so he can see the care in her again? So do you think he needed a test subject to figure out how to properly do it to Helena?
As into like wipe her like as a clean slate, like have her go through the whole process for another end result for Helena is
Right.
what you're
Like basically build the perfect Helena to take over
okay.
the company, right? Like you, so you see how like they've been building Gemma's mind, right?
Right.
Cobell tells us the numbers are doorway to her mind. So they tested it on someone, right? And Cole Harbor is supposed to be the ultimate, right? And we'll get to why, because of the traumatic scene and everything, and
Right.
possibly the any not being able to remember, right? So there's a clean slate, brand new person. That 25th Gemma was a brand new person. You think he's trying to create a brand new Helena with the proper tempers and the right passion and fire and the things that he sees and care to have that person take over the company because he believes the current Helena is not suited to do so?
I don't know. I'm probably leaning no, if I'm being honest, just
Mm.
because how he feels about Helena. In that last moment, Helly, I don't think that's enough for him to like, let's just I think it's more so a bigger, it's a small step for a bigger goal that is
Mhm.
beyond those that are working in Lumen at this point in time. And
Yeah.
I think Gemma is finally the test subject that achieves everything.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get into that final scene in Cold Harbor, but yeah, I'm gonna say no. I don't think
Okay.
so.
Okay.
What do you
Speaking
think?
of
Do you
that,
think so or no?
so here's the thing. I,
Mhm.
I I potentially think yes. So here's what I think. I do think that James, and I think the parallel between Gemma and Helena all season, people were talking about the body swap. But remember, I was like, I can't see a reason for them to swap bodies. But I think the procedure that they put Gemma through, they could
Mhm.
do a like expedited, kind of abbreviated version
Mhm.
to Helena now that they know how to do it, and just build the perfect Helena in the eyes of James, because
Got you.
the current Helena is not good enough. Helly has some things, but she also has some other, like Helly's gonna bring the company down. She's not about that. Like, one thing about Helly from the gate, she's rebellious. Just even look at when she busts Milchick in the head with the, like she's just a wild card. But I think they could look to build the perfect Helena per se.
Got it.
But
Got it.
the thing is, it gets. But I think it's something that they would probably mention, but we wouldn't see them do it, right? Because then it will become redundant. They start testing on Heliar, and Mark
Yeah.
S has to save her. It would be too redundant. So I think we can hear mentions of it, but we won't actually see it play out, if that makes sense.
Got you. Got you.
So you spoke about Gemma though. So two things in my mind immediately that we didn't see. One is smaller to me than the other. We still didn't see anybody with pouches,
Yeah.
like, but we didn't see the car crash. And I know it was probably staged or fake, but we didn't see how she got to be with Lumen. Do you think we'll ever get that?
Possibly. I think especially if we go to season 3 and now we see Gemma on the outside, I think she'll start to reflect on how she got there. Maybe even, go into her lingering story like, oh, maybe it's my fault. I should never probably, because I think she may have volunteered to go to Lumen. And she's like, oh, maybe I should never did that. So it might be some flashbacks there. I think
Yeah.
they'll touch on it a little bit. I think they should, obviously, unless it's something that really leads to a bombshell theory, which I don't think at this point in time. So that's yeah, I believe we will get that.
Okay. So Mark finishes Cole Harbor. Let's talk about Cole Harbor. Do you think the reveal of Cole Harbor was disappointing, or were you good with it?
I think it's pretty mid. I
Pretty
think it's
mid.
pretty mid. Honestly, it kind of we still don't really know truly what Call Harbor is because it was interrupted by Mark.
Yeah. So
So I
to,
think the biggest thing in that scene is we see her build, and it kind of raises the question for me because her building the carriage, we kind of already know it's in relations to the traumatic experience of the child itself,
Mhm,
right? But she's building or taking apart the baby carriage in a similar manner that Mark did.
mhm.
So at first I'm thinking like, oh, did they somehow supplant Mark's experiences into Gemma? But then I'm like, I don't there was no real callback to that. So I'm like, that's probably unlikely, right? But when they ask her questions, who she are, she's like this blank slate. And then
Mhm.
of course she starts taking things apart, right? And maybe she just has the muscle memory to take the crib apart. And that's kind of once it's completed, then Cole Harbor will go into full effect, which we have yet to see. But
Yeah.
it sounds like you want to say something. Go ahead before I.
No, so I'm gonna tell you my take on Cole Harbor because to me, like I like that Cole Harbor was it to use your word mid because it kind of brought the show back down, right? Like it doesn't seem like we're trying to resurrect care. It doesn't seem like we're cloning people. And as fun as it was to come up with those theories and those guesses, it felt like it was making the show too large and we weren't really sure where it was gonna go. I felt like
Mhm.
this kind of grounded Severance per se, but in a good way, right? Like the tech just isn't that advanced to do what some
Exactly.
of those theories we had, right? So I kind of like that
Exactly.
they kind of reeled it back in per se. So even though they made the show smaller, I think it's for the better. Now, to talk about Cole Harbor, what I think Cole Harbor was is the ultimate, right? Because it does seem like they're trying to get people to live through like pain and all these traumatic memories, but it seems like they're trying to create like me, the perfect any or the ideal any for whatever that you like you said, whatever that goal is. But they have to test it, right? Because
Mhm.
not obviously they don't know what's happening with Irving, but they want to test how much can they push it before the Audi's life starts seeping through, right? So for Gemma, this is the ultimate traumatic moment. Even the scene in the show is very dark, right? Where they
Mhm.
juxtapose her taking apart the crib with the sacrificing of the goat. Remember from
Yep.
Mammalians Nurturable, where Lauren brings the goat. So they juxtapose her taking apart the crib with the sacrifice of the goat, right?
Correct.
Signifying like the death of the baby. And we know like a baby goat, like the proper name is a kid. So it was
Mhm.
almost like the death of a kid, the way they were juxtaposing like her miscarriage scene with the sacrifice of the kid goat. You know what I mean? So I just thought the scene was executed beautifully. And I think it was the most traumatic moment, the losing of the kid, the moment that she probably gave up faith, potentially gave into Lumen. Maybe Lumen coerced her, saying, "We'll help you have a baby." But I feel like it was her darkest moment. And to her, it meant nothing to her. She was just taking apart a crib. She didn't want to be there, right? Gemma doesn't want to be there, or this 25th personality doesn't really know what the meaning of this is. She didn't want to be there. But I think what they didn't know is kind of to go back to your point, the innies are really just like versions of their Audi. She didn't know Mark, but something internally told her to trust him.
Yeah.
So, in fact, Cole Harbor, as of right now, is a failure.
Yeah, and it seems like it, Um, and quick question: what do you think Drummond meant when he says when he has the interaction, right? And she asks, how many times do we have to do this? He says, as many times, basically as many times as it takes. Do you think they've gotten this close before, where they're sacrificing goats along with potentially people? It sounds like because I'm under the impression that Cold Harbor Gem is the first to get to the final mark,
Mhm.
right? But what were your like initial thoughts during that conversation?
So I didn't. I mean, that's interesting. I didn't really look at it that way. I looked at it as just what kind of. I think the sacrificing of the goat, right? It's just like they're culty. It's a ritual. Maybe every time they think they have some kind of groundbreaking thing, they sacrifice the goat to care.
Hmm.
But maybe it's been consistent trial and error, right? We thought this was the perfect version of the innie. We thought this was it. We thought this was it. So I mean, I didn't really make too much of that because I thought they were just sacrificing it like every time they thought, okay, this is it now. This is it. You know what I mean? For every like major moment, the
You know,
sacrifice, the goats kind of, like I said, the show kind of felt grounded. The goats didn't feel as big as I thought they were before. I thought the goat milk was being used to feed and grow clones, and Miss Wong was a clone bred off of goat milk. You know what I'm saying? So like they kind of just reeled it in. So the goats to me, just like it's just culty, just
yeah,
sacrificing
it's
them in
100%
honor of
cult.
care.
Yeah, 100% cult like, right? Which they kind of kept up the theme. But for me, it kind of was like, oh, you guys been really smoking a lot of people. Like, it's just not a couple people. You guys really been, so it kind of gave me like, okay, you guys been doing this. This is not, it's a lot of trials and error, which I understand, but it kind of gave me light to, okay, I wonder how many bodies that you guys have in your closet now, but go ahead.
So before we talk about bodies, right? Well, I kind of want to go back to Helly, right? When Helly told Mark, like, hey, I'm her. And we mentioned this earlier in this video. Like, to you, was that her telling him, like there's really nothing we can do. You should go complete the mission, right? Is that how you saw that? Because I feel like she then tells him, I'll see you at the equator. And to me, it's like when she said, I see you at the equator, does it mean like I'm gonna help you finish the mission, or was it they made some kind of secret plan that we didn't get the dialogue from? Do you know what I mean? Like the end, like I don't want to talk completely about the ending yet, but was it planned or was it ad hoc?
See, that's the thing. Because at the end, I'm like, all right, so, and we could talk about right that last scene and everything, right? So, I mean, first I'll start at the desk to answer your question outright. Is a possibility that it could have been planned only because of how the ending happened. If someone is assuming that is Helly at the end, right? Then obviously it would probably have had to been planned. But in my perspective, I don't know. I think it was just one of those moments where Mark was torn, and I think once he's seen Helly or what he thinks is Helly, who he thinks is Helly, I think he then made the choice. Right. So I don't think it was, I think it was just language just to kind of say, all right, maybe they'll equate as afterlife or whatnot. I don't think it was essentially planned to do that from the beginning. But then again, who knows at this point? Because, but before I go into the rest, I'll let you kind of take from there.
F it. Let's talk about the ending. There's no order in the way we need to do this video. The video doesn't have to be in the order of how the show was. You know what I'm saying? So at the end, do you think that's Helly or do you think it's Helena? And I think the moment you're referencing is she comes and then as she's leaving, she kind of gives this kind of like evil, grimacing look at Gemma, almost like I won.
Yeah, and you can see the red light beaming down on her, which is kind of like tell sign. Oh, maybe it's Helly. I mean, Helena. Yes, Helena. I mean, to be honest, I would prefer it to be Helly, right? And that's just a throw off, only because we've seen this trick already before. And I think it's obvious. The obvious route would be, okay, that's Helena tricking Mark again and taking him, unless it leads to something in season 3 or in season 3 that's like, okay, this is what they did to Mark, therefore afterwards, and it was required that Helena revert back to stop this plan. But personally, I'm hoping it was just Helly and that part of her that's inside that really wants to be with Mark kind of revealed its head and kind of showed why the innies and outies are more similar than they are different. That's what I'm really hoping for. But I mean, all the signs is pointing that it was pointing towards Helena. Just the signs, and if we're following the signs, unless they're just using it to kind of just as a ploy to change our direction of the show. So
like nothing in Severance to me is unintentional. So that look, I don't think that's just our minds playing games with us, right? You know what I'm saying? Like that was what's the four tempers? Because I feel like that was like malice. Or something. You know what I'm saying? That was like
it was crazy, and it was running down the hallway like, where y'all going? Like, you know what I mean? But maybe Helena's probably going to take him somewhere that he should, I mean, the company's large, so
scream Helena, right? But it's like who would have turned her back on? Her dad? Do you know what I'm saying? And at what point could that have happened? But like you said, just because we've seen this trick already, like they would have to write it in such a good way that we're not like, oh, they're gonna keep playing this card. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like it could be her dad playing her, right? And like, I need you for this instance. And I think, so she doesn't know that her dad doesn't love her. She might not feel it, but she doesn't know that he verbally came out and said that, right? So he could just be using her. Like, I need you for this. This is what's happening. And then next thing you know, like Now he has both of them. He's going to play them. And like I said, I don't think the show can play this out because it'd be too redundant. But now he puts Helly on the testing floor. And now any Mark can't leave and he won't. He'll want to work because it's the only way that he can see her again. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, that's too redundant. So the show can't go there. But man, I'm with you. I'm hoping it's Helly too. And I'm hoping it's just spur of the moment. You know, Mark S., he was fulfilling the mission. But you know, as he was helping Gemma get out, he kept his word. He saved her, but he just didn't feel anything. And then once he heard Helly's voice, you know what I'm saying? And then, you know, they said, but once he heard Helly's voice, like the emotions came through that he wasn't feeling for Gemma. But the only reason I'm like suspicious, bro, is the whole equator thing, right? And I know they were just throwing stuff out, but you know, the equator is what, like the halfway point between the world, right?
Right.
And it just felt like that door was the perfect, like the equator is the perfect code name for it. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like right, the cutoff, right? When you go out, now you're the outie. But you know what I'm saying? It's so the and it could just be like the show just being coincidental. Like, I mean, the show did it intentionally, but it being coincidental for the characters. But the equator and the plan, something about it seems planned. But it couldn't have been Helena that far back because when would they have activated Helena? So I definitely want answers, you know, like maybe Helly is just happy that she's with Mark. And it's not necessarily like, oh, haha to you. It's just I'm a person too, and this is what I want. You know what I'm saying? Like to me, this is the lesser of the two evils, I guess.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, I don't think Lumen is that crazy to just start off, but Drummond almost lost his shit and almost smoked Mark,
bro.
So you know he really lost it. Are you? And it's funny because we literally, I think we was talking over the phone. I'm like, would you be satisfied with an accidental death? And it literally
and I said
happened.
yes, and I was very satisfied with that accidental death.
Yeah.
And I know you know your taste in violence can be a little darker than mine. So I'm gonna ask you, were you satisfied with that death?
I mean, I was okay with it. I would have preferred getting his brains bashed in moments ago before stepping in the elevator, but but I'm okay with it, you know, since he's out of the picture.
It made sense because as much as like we would like them to be like that, none of them are really like that thus far, right? He's like, so like Mark is not.
I mean, he almost got his head smashed in by whatchamacallit,
no, Brienne of Tarth is like, she's like that. Lauren,
that's what I was saying. She almost
like
finished the job, but Mark was like, no, you know.
But
I actually like Mark accidentally when the thing and he accident. I actually prefer that because it's you know.
I like it because he's not a killer, and I don't think he's being pushed, but he hasn't been pushed to the point of no return. So I like that it was an accident because I don't think he really had the guts to do it himself. And I think that's consistent writing with where his character is at this point.
Absolutely,
so, But
and then
I like that.
Just that switch, like he don't know where he's at, and he accidentally pulls the trigger is hilarious. So,
but
Drummond is out of here.
I like that he wasn't too shaken up and he just continued with what he had to do. Like I appreciate that. But bro, they had to get Drummond out there. Dude is too big, bro. Like you keep, even though like Lauren, I'm gonna stop calling her Brienne of Tarth because this isn't Game of Thrones. But Lauren, she was giving him all that he can handle. That was a good fight
scene. That was a good fighting scene. I'm not even gonna lie, it really was. Like she was putting paws on him. And he was too. Drummond was giving her up for money. I was like, yo, I didn't know how it was going to end, you know?
Drummond punched Mark with the, I'm like,
boom. I was like, oh. And then he just joked. I was like, nah, he's wild. And then he tried to choke him out. I'm not going to lie. Like, I know the show isn't like violent at all, but to be honest, that was probably the most exciting part of the episode. Like in terms of excitement, I was like, oh, okay. But it's good that we don't have too many scenes like that because then it would take away from the show. You know, so
exactly. They did an excellent job with writing that in. So two more things that are on my mind, right? So the crib, right? We know the taking apart of the crib. Like we saw that the crib, the brand of the crib was like Cole the Arbor, right? It had like that weird.
That's the brand of the crib.
The brand of the crib, but it's spelled weird. It's like
C-O-L. So they set it up.
It's like COLD like apostrophe Arbor. So it's like a weird kind of thing, which is kind of why I think they're naming the room Cold Harbor, because it's that ultimate emotional moment and the connection between the crib, right? But so it's just making me
Yeah,
think of Rickon, right? Because
I don't
that
trust
crib,
that guy, man.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know you don't. And that Cold Harbor crib is like a 3-in-1 kind of crib, right? And I told you I've been watching season one, and like in season one, there's the moment where they're talking to Devin and like Rickon, and basically it's this like weird theory that, oh, if you change the child's bed, it really messes them up. So for example,
Okay.
you just
I
have
remember.
all like my daughter, right? Like for example, if she's in like this toddler bed right now, but I had the next bed for her, and then like all her beds should be present in her room so it doesn't like conflict with her mind. Some weird Rickon nonsense, right?
Yeah.
So that just made me think of Rickon and where has Rickon been, right?
Yeah.
But the second part to that is when Mark comes in and they replace the Kier painting, right? The Kier painting that Dylan was in front of, and it looked like his head was getting, you know what I'm saying, with the Mark painting, right, for Cole Harbor. But we see a bunch of people, but who stood out to me was Rickon and Rickon's friends. And I'm just like, who would have like at that one party at Devin and Rickon's house, like they would have known to paint Rickon's friends? How would they know that? Who would have gave them that intel? And then so now, like I went from thinking about the crib, like, oh, I see the connection why they got the 3-in-1 crib, Rickon. But then it's like, wait, where have you been? Then it's like, how do they know to include some of the people they included in this painting? So I'm gonna go back to early this season when you said you didn't trust Rickon, you think he may be working with them. Does this solidify that theory for you, or what are you thinking about Rickon?
It doesn't solidify the theory, but it adds on to it. He's one of those characters that's just squeaky clean, but
Mhm,
he's still lingering. It's subtle clues that he's, especially with his book, he's always tied, like him being mentioned in the newspaper for the Indies. Like these things are still, why are you so close? And then of course his conversation with Devin, kind of the switch. And then now, like you mentioned with the painting, like how would you pose a really good question? How would they know? It's not like they have these beaming cameras, from hosted. And who knows though? They might have cameras in his house. Who knows, right? But
mhm.
um, it really begs the question. I don't know if they're trying to hold on to that till season 3 to kind of make that reveal, but I don't know. He's definitely someone to keep an eye on.
Yeah. And like the final temper for Cole Harbor, I believe, was Frolic, right? And then we see Mark push the B on the keyboard, right? And I think I'm sure you caught this, like I caught this. The B is under the G and the H, right? For
Mhm.
Gemma and Helly,
And
right? So it's like conflicted between
between,
like the two people he's torn between. So now, and I was telling you, like this is like he's probably
yeah,
gonna have to do the Orihime Rukia that
yeah,
Ichigo never had to do, right? Like that was something I mentioned to you, and he had to make a decision. And I like
yeah.
that Mark S made his decision. So for Severance, this would make it even darker, right? Even though there are a lot of unanswered questions, if they just ended the show here, how would you feel about that? Like, what if season 2 was just the end? We don't really know what's going to happen, but listen, this is Mark S's decision, and I'm going with this person. Forget that person. Like, how would you feel if the show ended there, or do you need season 3 to play out this story further?
To be, I mean, we have too many unanswered questions. It'll obviously show that the TV show was incomplete, right? Like we still didn't
Mhm.
know what happens, and then it ends kind of in a cliffhanger, right? With them being, and what's going back to the keyboard. What it also reminds, now that you're talking to me, now it kind of reminds me of that imagery of when Helena was cutting the eggs, and you have the two dwarfs and the person in the middle, right? It reminds me of that, where like
Mhm.
it's Gemma and then Helena Heli, and then Mark in the middle being torn. So that's an interest that kind of just, you talking about it kind of reminded me of that scene there. But to answer your question, it'll be unsatisfying. It will kind of just be like, okay, I actually would have liked to get more information in season 2 to really, but the way the show was kind of directed, I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
I just wanted a little bit more of a reveal that it can kind of be expounded upon in season 3.
yeah.
But yeah.
I'm one of those, and I haven't really seen these tags yet, but I know they're coming, and this is a play on Stranger Things, right? I'm like one of those justice for Gemma people, right? Like it initially we didn't really know, like when season one was early on, we didn't know she was Gemma. We just knew Miss Casey. But as we got to know Gemma, and then we think of Chikai Bardo, I think episode 7 was called, like that really won me over. And before that, I was like really on board with Mark S and Helly. But that really like swayed my thinking, and I've been like team Gemma, right? So
Mhm.
do you think even though Mark S made the decision, do you think he could have at least said some words to Gemma like, hey, I'm not him, to play on like what Helly said, or say, hey, she's the one I love. But like, do you think he could at least gave her something, like not a full blown explanation? It wasn't time for that, but he could have, like, I'm sorry or something. Like he just gave her
Yeah, like I'm sorry would have been, you know, something. This guy's a lunatic. Like
yeah,
he's like, yo, nah, I'm out. Like, you know, like
yeah.
I'm out of here. I think Gemma's probably gonna put two and two together, like assume, oh, you know, Mark was severed, or she's probably gonna get that
But
explanation
she
when she
doesn't know
gets
he's
there.
severed, right?
That's what I'm saying. She should assume, especially since him being part of Lumen, understanding she was severed herself. You know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe she doesn't know that he was working for Lumen. She may not, but regardless, she will find out though. She's
Yeah,
definitely going to get filled in. In that moment, though, I'm not sure what she was thinking.
bro, that must hurt,
I'm not
bro.
sure. Yeah, she might have been thinking like, man, Mark, you left me for her. Like she could have probably been confused, like, what's going on? Like, you know, we was just kissing each other, and now all of a sudden, now you're doing this, which probably in her first instinct should be, wait, is that even Mark? But then it'd be even more heartbreaking because it's like my Mark is not even in control and he's leaving me. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Which could probably be more heartbreaking than Mark just like making that final decision. But he should have said something, you know?
Yeah. It's just crazy because I can't imagine what she's going through. Because, like I said, at this point, she doesn't know that he's severed. Even if she puts it together, she doesn't know right then and there. So much going on. She's probably just like crushed. But now, season 3, right? I mean, if it is a season 3, I don't think it's been confirmed yet, but I think it will be because Severance has surpassed Ted Lasso as the most streamed Apple TV show. So,
Right.
right, too much success to just cut it off here. Like where do they go? Like you said, there's a lot of unanswered questions, but I don't think we want to see Gemma, Cobell, and Devin on a rescue mission for Mark. And but like you
Yeah, I
said, like
don't.
there's not much Mark to, like, you have to leave at some point in time and become the Audi again. But the thing is, now the Audi is never gonna let you go back unless they go back and like activate the overtime contingency, and he comes out as the Audi. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and this is the thing about Severance because they have to tread carefully because season 2, right? They potentially could have ended it with 2 seasons. But if they're kind of just extended to season 3, they need to have enough content to pack into season 3 that feels fulfilling and is meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably going to have to expand their horizon a bit and not maybe reintroduce Irvin, but you got to start introducing maybe new key figures,
Yeah.
maybe do a time skip. I think that would probably work really well for the TV show. But you're
But
probably going to have to, you're going to have to bring another element that is not been reintroduced yet, at least consistently. But you was going to say something? Go ahead.
I think a time skip is hard because it's like in the time skip, is Mark S gonna have been down there the whole time? And because if he leaves, Audi is not letting him come back. You know what I'm saying? So a time skip is kind of hard without seeing
I,
what he
I
does
would
down there.
see the reason why I say time skip is because if you don't do a time skip, now you got to pick up exactly where things left off. And then how can you expand it or drag it out
Mhm.
for a whole 3 seasons? Like, think about it. Mark needs to get rescued. Who's going to rescue him? You're going to go and get him Irvin, work together with Devin and the rest of the crew. Now they got to go into, you know, and then rescue him. And then is that season 3? Or if he leaves and he's with Gemma, what are they going to do? Oh, we got to get back at Lumen. Oh, now we got to, you know,
Yeah.
we got to actually put an end to this. And how do you put an end to this? What I'm saying is it just, I mean, unless they find a way, I feel like it won't, at least with a time skip, it can easily, seamlessly introduce new characters, you
Mhm.
know, and then you could potentially get 2 seasons out of that instead of just
Yeah.
1 and then end it there. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Versus like if you just pick up directly afterwards, it's kind of like every season kind of, all right, you picked up, but if you pick up right after this, what more can you really add and stretch it out for, you know, 10 episodes in the season is what I'm saying. That's my worry. They can do it, but personally for me, I think if you have the same characters, James, Dr. Mauer, like, you know, you got to introduce new characters. And how do you introduce new characters? you either do flashbacks or sometimes you got to do a time skip to make it
Mhm.
seamless, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. I think if they do a time skip, he would have had to leave though, and it has to be some craziness to have to, I guess, bring him back to it. But I just don't know how far they can go with him just staying on the set because you're gonna get caught, right? Because
Yeah, and when I say time skip, I'm not saying like 10 years, 5 years. It could just be a time skip of like maybe a year, right? Or maybe 6 months is what I'm saying, like a reasonable one, because you can't do it too far out is what I'm saying. So just to kind of give you some sense, it
yeah,
can't be like 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, it would have to be something reasonable. But
yeah.
go ahead.
So no. I mean, I think we're pretty much at the end of this, but I'm gonna say, let's assume we get season 3. Just give me a couple things that you want to see answered in season 3.
What is Cold Harbor, right? What was going to be the end result ultimately? And so what is Cold Harbor? And then also, I mean, I'm not really, probably just a confirmation. Was it in fact Heli or Helena at the end of that scene? And then 3, really, what is the mysteriousness? What is Lumen's end goal? Really, that's the biggest question of all, right? What are there, and what are they trying to achieve ultimately? Are you looking to sever the world? We understand some key points, right? Get rid of pain through severance, but what are their long-term goals? So those are
Yeah.
really the 3
Yeah.
that I really
So,
need.
I mean, that last one's a major one for me. I want to know who Irving has been working with, like when he's making those calls, who he's talking to,
Mhm,
right? Um, my assumption is that Irving somehow may end up in Salt's neck, right? But I think he'll be back in the show at some point in time. But I want to know who he's been working with, who's his contact or whatever. Like maybe it's not Ragabi, but like who is it, right? So like that
mhm,
that's one thing I want to know. I want to know how they chose Gemma. Like, was it
mhm,
coincidence, or when she was at the Lumen blood drive, was there something in her DNA or something that
mhm.
made them say this person is the person, right? So I want to know that, and because you did 3, I'll do a third one. Let me come up with a third one that I want to know right now.
Um,
I guess I want to know like what like I want some more insight to Milchick. Like, why is he the way he is? Like, what has he gone through to be like that? Because there's so many instances, and you see him cracking, and I thought he would have cracked by now, especially that now he's going back and forth with animatronic care, and I thought enough would have been enough. But by the end of it, he's still like on board with them, bro. He put everything into breaking out of that bathroom, and like, bro, like I mean, for a certain period of time, I just feel like Dylan should be able to hold Seth back there, bro. But like the passion in him broke out of there, and then the way he jumped on the vending machine, like some kind of like James McAvoy and Split or something. Like he was the beast. Like he looked like some kind of killer at that moment. So I want
he got
more.
he got frustrated. Let me ask you this before we wrap up. Do
Yeah.
you think he's going? They going? I don't want to use this term right because that'll kind of be crazy. But do you think he's gonna face some repercussions in season 3 for what happened?
If Lumen is still intact, which I guess they will be, because yes, he's gonna have to, because just as he told Drummond, what happens out there is on you. What happens on the 7th floor is on me. And Mark S was able to leave the severed floor and go down to the testing room and ruin everything they've been working on. So that's on Drummond. So he would be forced to face repercussions. I don't
Got
know.
you.
I don't know if that gets Miss Cobell back in. It probably doesn't, or I don't know if that brings Miss Wong back or a new character that we haven't seen before.
Got you. And do you think this will play a role in, I guess, the replacement of Drummond?
I don't know that they need. I don't think they need to replace Drummond. I think they have too many people.
Oh, so you think they won't replace him?
I don't think there'll be emphasis on it.
Okay.
I don't, yeah, like I don't think Drummond was that important. Like I think he was just, I don't know, he's just like a placeholder. Like, yeah, do these things, yes, but I don't think he was that important
Oh, for the
after all.
story you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I'll say for the org, I feel like he was
Like,
very
like,
important.
like, like, I like
For the
no,
story,
but
I get
I
it.
mean, like, I don't think the board is gonna be like, we need another Drummond. I feel like there's too many people around that can just.
And who would, if you had to name one person to replace him, who would it be that you've seen from the show thus far?
to replace Drummond, I guess it would only person I can really think of is Dr. Maurer, but
Okay.
I don't know how important his role will still be. You know what I
Gotcha.
mean? So
Okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
but that's
All right.
all I had.
Gotcha. Same here.
Yeah, so 2 cents short of a dollar. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Our episode 9 review really engage. I really enjoyed the engagement there and being able to get in the comments and talk to a few of you guys. We're going to be without Severance for a while, so make sure you jump in the comment section. Let's start some Severance conversations. I'm pretty sure we're going to do some more Severance videos, but really appreciate you guys. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe.